Hey, true believers. Chris Mack coming at you with Uncanny X-Men 282. This is the first appearance of Bishop. And I thought about it and I did not want to pull out my original copy, as I'm glad to see that that book is finally gaining some traction after all these years. Because I remember throughout the ages, I'd see people show me their collections, or I'd see dollar bins, and this issue would end up in there. And I'm thinking, why? Bishop is such an established character and everyone likes him. I just could not understand it. But now I'm kind of starting to glad to see that this book is getting more hype, umpteen years later. The print date on it was November 1991. And the last issue, one thing I've noticed, kind of getting sidetracked here, is Willis Portacio, the books that I do remember reading from him during the X-Men era, is he was very much like, you do not get a minute to breathe. Last issue was just full scale chaos with the end, Jean Grey seemingly being killed, which, it's no surprise there. But yeah, I mean, you'd think, oh, that's kind of boring. You'd think that, Chris Claremont would be slow paced and Willis Portacio would be fast paced. But, I have to give credit to both of their writing styles. They know what they're doing, and that's why the books always sold really well during their stints on these issues. It opens up very slow, as I just said, with Forge and Professor Xavier playing chess. And it's very jovial, very heartfelt. But then, before you even get a minute to think about it, boom, this issue is called Payback. Got Jane cradled in Colossus's arms. We have a ripped up Sentinel head being thrown into Forge's hands. And we're just wondering, is Jean really dead or not? Now, before we move any further into this, again, this is Willis Portacio doing the plotting and the penciling, Art Thibert doing the inks, John Byrne's script, John Morsehead doing the colors, Tom Orzanowski letters, Bob Harris was the editor, and Tom DeFalco was the editor-in-chief. And even though from the documentary called Chris Claremont's X-Men, they were kind of talking about when, Bob and DeFalco kind of took over, how they favored the artists Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld, etc., so forth, and that's one of the reasons why Claremont quit. I will say that at least the books were entertaining nonetheless. Like, most of the books I read where they were the editors, there was quality to them compared to a lot of modern comics where you see me say, oh, it's sitting and talking, or this issue's going nowhere, and everyone's kind of like a background prop. At least everybody in this book, even though they seem to be standing here, they all have a role to play as this plot unfolds. No one's just standing around being a background prop, which in a lot of modern comics, I hate that. You see Rogue and you're thinking, why the hell is she just standing in the background? She should be going, I'm going to punch you, sugar. And that's just, moments like that. And then again, look at this. We have Fitzroy coming to try to fulfill a deal he has with Shinobi Shaw, which is Sebastian Shaw's, I think, bastard son. I can't remember 100%. But he's carrying the head of Donald Pierce. And Fitzroy's like, you promised to give me the control over the upstarts and your father's ring. And Shinobi's like, yeah, we're not going to play that game. And then Fitzroy's like, okay, well, I'll just take it by force. Do you really think you have a chance against them? Now, on the chance the ring has grown too snug upon your finger, you'd not dare. Oh, yes, I would, Shinobi. Haven't you realized by now? I will do anything. Now, the more that I go back and I read this era, again, these earlier issues, I think when I was a kid around 6 or 7, and I really started to get into the books, not the animated series, but the books, I think it was during the Executioner song. So it was shortly after this. But I was a child at the time when Bishop was starting to really grow into this team along with Gambit. And I didn't think, I was young, didn't really understand the layers that these books had. So I didn't think anything of Fitzroy, but now, being an adult, going back and reading these, I'm like, damn, Fitzroy would have been like the perfect quote-unquote Joker of the Marvel Universe. It's too bad that he got underutilized after Portacio and all the rest of the X-Writers went to Image, because he is basically a mutant vampire, kind of like Omega Red. But he's a lot more, as where Omega Red was more of a soldier, Trevor Fitzroy is more of a cold, calculating. He could be smart, but his arrogance and his what do you call it? His ego just will not allow him to win. Essentially, what his mutant power does is he absorbs the powers, or should I say, the entire life force of mutants, and he's able to open portals. And from what I understand, his portals are one way, and when people come through them, they fuse together very nastily. This kind of reminds me of Hellraiser when Pinhead merges those two brothers together, and ugh. And see this type of design. I mean, look at the paneling here, where it's just very jolted. I mean, look how it's everything's nice and clean here, border boxes. But then when these beings come through the portal and they merge and they exit, so you don't need a lot of like up close gore violence. Just the use of the one colors, the action lines, and the disjointedness of the panels, just enough to make you cringe. And a lot of modern writers, they either don't push the envelope far enough, or they push it too far to the point where it's just kind of like, okay, that's just gratuitous violence. Here, I know that comic writers had to be a little more cognizant of the comic code. Well, this isn't the original book, so it's not going to have the comic code authority thing on it. Do you all remember what year the comic code was abolished? I can't remember if it was the 90s or if it was just actually more recent. But anyway, what I'm trying to get at is at least these writers here knew how to kind of dance around, because the comic code was very ambiguous. They can never give you a clear set of instructions. So at least here they knew how to get across what they wanted and make it harrowing enough without it being in-your-face gratuitous violence like, let's say, Robert Rodriguez or Eli Roth's Hostel. Anyway, moving on with that. The whole plot with the X-Men is Professor X finds Jean's psyche. It's not in her body, so essentially she is clinically dead. But where her psyche is kind of leads them to Fitzroy, which in terms of the plot really shows how everything is intricate, and again, doesn't feel like it was just a quick thrown together idea. Because if you read this arc from beginning to end, everything for the most part, because comics feels cohesive and that there was a reason for it. Now here, this is probably the most harrowing of panels. The Sentinels are trying to tell Fitzroy that there's a ship coming, which I don't understand, because the Blackbird is supposed to be able to run stealth, and you would think the Maker Forge being on board would able to fly under the radar. But again, these are supposed to be New Age Sentinels, so I guess you can kind of give that a pass, because every time the X-Men fight these Sentinels, they say, these are new, we've never seen anything like this before. So I'll kind of give it a pass. But every time, whenever the plot is necessary, the Blackbird is never, is never noticed, for lack of a better term. Anyway, going back to Fitzroy's arrogance, he has all the Hellions captured, along with the White Queen. And here he goes and tears into Territ. And again, look at the disjointed of the panels, how it just goes raw, just in your face. You get a little bit of like the Kirby crackle design here in the back with all the reds. And look at Territ's face. She goes, "You're killing me." Oh dear, no, my dear Territ. At least not yet. The essence of your life will continue to exist as a part of me. That is, until I use the energy to open another one of my temporal passages. Then your small life, coupled with the lives of the two unfortunate I absorbed earlier, will be expended. And you can just see how sociopathic he is. And the up-close paneling, it's like you can't get away from it. Just like when cinema, when they do an up-close on someone and you just can't get away from that feeling, and you just feel so gross and horrified inside. Like you're feeling for this woman, and then you're just stuck look at the eyes of her killer in this uncanny valley, and you want to turn away, but you can't because you want to read this story. So excellent work in terms of scripting and art planning. Very excellent. So with all that said, without giving away too much, the X-Men barge in. Gorgeous, gorgeous artwork. I mean, look at this. I don't see this type of quality anymore, especially with traditional. Like, this was the early days, again, I've said before, of digital art. So a lot of this was still hand done. And compared to a lot of modern books where things are either 3D modeled, just think about the time and planning and thought and actual care that you want to sell a good product. This is becoming a lost art. Oh, man. Oh, baby, is it beautiful. And so you get a whole lot of these temporal goons from the future coming to attack. And without, again, giving too much away, here's the first appearance of the man named Bishop. What does it all mean? Guys, I highly recommend before that this book really starts becoming too expensive, go to your local comic shop if you've enjoyed what you've seen and pick up an original copy of Uncanny X-Men 282. If it's on the wall and it's like out of your price range, I get it. At least they have these True Believer copies. This was $1. So if you can at least get your hands on this to for a reader copy until you can, not break the bank. Phenomenal artwork, phenomenal story. If you guys have enjoyed this review, we really would appreciate if you take a moment to hit like, share, and subscribe. Helps the club channel more than you can possibly know. And if you wouldn't mind hitting that fancy little XSC bell next to subscribe, that way as we continue to upload content, you guys will get notified. Come to the channel, and we love talking with you all and hearing your thoughts and feedback down in the comments below, or our social media pages, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description. So with all that said, thank you so much for stopping by. Hope you all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, true believers.